Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So as you can see from the title, we are going to be unboxing, playing with, testing, reviewing the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Brush Bundle. It is a 24 brush kit. It has this beautiful box. I'm going to go into all the details and everything, but if you want to see me put 23 out of 24 brushes to the test, there is only one I did not use and I will tell you why. Make sure to keep on watching and don't forget to subscribe. I do upload twice a week and that is the best way to stay up to date on all the fun stuff I'm posting. I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's get right into the video. So I'm going to link all of the info on the different kits down below, but the big kit, the Master Collection, 24 brushes, and this magical glittery brush case retails for $165. Now, I have not used this before. This is 100% a first impressions. All I did was I unpacked all the brushes, sprayed them with a little bit of Cinema Secrets just to get any like factory gook off of them. That's just something I don't want to touch my face with a brush that might have like hit dirt or something during production. So that being said, let's jump right in. Now I am going to attempt to use as many of these brushes today as humanly possible. So I did my brows and primed my eyes already because those are the things that I don't really use brushes for. I also primed the face just because there's really no like primer brush in here. So I'm going to start by going in with foundation, and I'm going to be linking down below all of the products I'm using just because today is all about the brushes. So the first brush that I'm going to be talking about is the JH03, which is a near perfect dupe for the M433 from Morphe. It is a little bit packed tighter, but that's just because this is new and this one is older. I'm not going to do this for every brush, but this one specifically, I don't love this brush for foundation, and the reason is I go in with a lot of foundation and I tend to go in a little heavy. So if you want to make a brush like this work, the key is take foundation on your hand, grab a tiny bit, and almost stipple it onto the skin. I know this looks light, but this foundation will come down a little bit, don't worry. And then, once you've kind of stippled it on, begin working in circular motions. Typically, I'll like load up the brush and just start swirling on the skin, and that I have found is like the worst thing to do with this brush. So rather than waiting till the very end to go over my final thoughts, I'm just going to talk about each brush as I use them. This brush works really well if you take a little bit of product and slowly build up your layers. If you load your face with product and then start swirling, it's just going to soak up product and it's not going to give you a super even base. But if you take the time to pick up a little, buff it in, pick up a little, buff it in, you will get a super smooth coverage with really buildable, like flawless, no issues with brush strokes or anything, and it just kind of gives you a nice smooth base. Now, again, I prefer a flat top kabuki brush, but this kind of a brush does work really well, and I actually love this type of brush for powder foundation. Okay, so I just threw on concealer just because you don't really need to see me apply that. The next brush is the JH08, which they describe as an anything creamy brush. So I'm going to try this for concealer. I've lately been really enjoying a concealer brush as opposed to a sponge. So I'm going to jump into a sponge to clean this up. I don't love this anything creamy brush. The issue that I had with it is, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it definitely like picked up product and it actually rubbed the foundation off of my nose. So I don't know if the bristles are just a little too rough and I need to wash them another few times before I'll really like it. This is a really good brush for like setting down eye primer or even like contouring the nose gently, but if it's gonna pull up your foundation, then it's not really going to do much of anything for me. Okay, so next up we have the JH07, which is the under eye powder brush. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of powder and make sure not to load it up too much. And I'm just going to take this to set the under eye. Now Jaclyn did say that this design was similar to a brush that Morphe already had. The only major difference was that this one is a little smaller and a little softer. And she actually equated it to this one. And you can see, compared to the Y11, I mean, this one is washed, so it's a little poofier, but it is definitely a smaller brush. And for those of you with a really small under eye, I think that's gonna be really preferred. I think I like a brush that's a little bit bigger, just because I do have a large face. And the more room to powder, the bigger the brush, the more time it's gonna take. But this is very soft. This is doing the job. I'm not getting a whole lot of fallout, which is nice a lot of times, and you guys have seen this and commented on it down below a million times over. But you see when I go in with powder, I tend to wear my powder. And this brush I think is just fluffy enough that it's picking up the powder and it is holding the powder. Next up is the JH06, which she refers to as the My Everything brush. This is a super soft tapered brush, and what I like to use a brush like this for is taking a little bit of powder and just using it to softly powder the rest of the face. What I find, especially in the fall, when I'm not quite as oily and I don't need as much powder, is if I go in with just like a very light veil of powder, this is the type of brush I want, because it's gonna just set everything down with just enough powder to not go crazy. Enough to set everything, but not so much that it starts to look cakey. So now that I've actually used this brush, I think this might be my new favorite setting brush. Like, just to be able to take such a light veil of powder and not have to be afraid of getting cakey or going overboard. It just kind of brushes everything smooth, and it is so soft. It's got a tiny little angle to it, so it just kind of hugs the face perfectly. Next up is the JH01, which is the powder brush. Now this, I've seen a lot of people online comparing to both the E41 from Morphe and the E2 from Morphe, and I actually think it is the perfect blend of the two. It's a little bit flatter on top, similar to the E2, which I really like, but it has that giant fullness of the E41. So I'm gonna be taking this with just a little bit more powder. I like the way that the small brush diffused powder, but when I'm like powdering my face, I like to take a swirl of powder and just kind of diffuse some of that. This brush is super soft. It is as soft as the other two, which that's the issue I have with a lot of powder brushes, especially something you're gonna be like taking and scratching up your whole face with. You want it to be really soft. And this I think is really good for just kind of picking everything up. Now I do want to disclose that with all of these brushes, these are first impressions. This is whether I like the way it's applying what I'm working with now. Does that mean that a different powder may not work as well? Yes. Does it mean that after I wash it, it could fall apart and be absolute crap? Yes. But I have a lot of Morphe brushes and I've never really had an issue other than my Y6, but the brand was actually really receptive and sent me a new one. So still, like, take everything with a grain of salt, but this is just how they apply everything. I didn't say this yet, but I'm really loving the white handle. I think that it is so sleek and it is so Jaclyn, and so many of my brushes are black and rose gold and black and gold and black and silver that I love just having like this beautiful white brush. Next is the JH02, and this is the bronzer brush. Now typically for bronzer, I don't go in with a brush quite so big. I like to go in with something a little bit tighter. I know on camera they kind of look both huge, and I'll just take that and kind of graze the area I'm using. With this kind of brush, I feel like it could make your bronzer go very overboard very quickly. However, obviously I'm gonna give it a try. Okay, so 2 little taps in, you can see the product on there, and it picks up the powder well, and it's holding it. It's not really like knocking it off. So I think that's good, because it's gonna help keep everything seamless. So I'm really liking the shape of it, the fact that it is kind of flat, because I can kind of buff it around the corners of the face and really get that precision I want. And if you want a more diffused look, you can kind of like take it the larger way, but I mean, I'm not going to. But I think that this is also a very soft brush. I don't think that this is giving me much. I don't normally contour my hairline just because I don't have much room right here that I really need to contour there. I do take it, however, on the sides of the face and on the temples. And this brush is really doing quite a lot for that. Something I do like about a massive brush like this, I like to add bronzer to the jawline. I like something that's big and fluffy and gonna just kind of get it done quickly. I typically will go in with like an angled brush that I use for blush and use that for the jawline, but this is really getting the job done a lot faster. Next is the JH36, and this is an eye buffing brush. However, this has a flat top to it. I don't really love using flat top shader brushes for my eyes. I prefer to have something with more of a dome shape just because it gets into my crease, which is a little deep set and hooded. But I do love using a brush like this to contour my nose. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So that actually went on really well. And an issue that I have with nose contour brushes or anything that you would typically use, and the reason I like to use shadow brushes, is they are softer because the skin up here is really delicate, that when you go in with such a soft brush, it'll gently diffuse your nose contour, but it won't pull off your foundation. An issue I have when I go in with some of those like brushes either designed for nose contour, they're a little bit rougher and they kind of like rip the foundation right off your face. So next for contour, this is the JH05, which is, in her words, the perfect contour brush. Now it is a little smaller, so it's supposed to like fit right into the socket of where you want to go under the cheekbone. So I'm gonna just add a little bit of a contour powder onto that, and let's see what happens. I think I might have just drank the Kool-Aid. Typically I like to go in with an angled brush for this as well, just because I find it hugs the cheekbone. But by using something that's like this, like so precise, I feel like it's helping me go right under the cheekbone and really carve it out. Like you're getting this kind of like highlighted effect, and I haven't put on any highlighter yet. So if this is gonna help to kind of help the cheekbone stand out even more by using a brush like this, then I am sold. So far, the concealer brush that I used is the only one that I could call scratchy. It's still very soft, but it did just pull up some product. All of the rest of these are like really soft. Like I'm having no issues with any of these doing anything. So from my BoxyCharm a few months ago, I got the Note Cosmetics, and this has been one of my favorite blushes, but it is so intense. And what I find in a blush brush that I need is fluffy enough to hold product, but gentle enough that if I tap stuff off, I can get a really smooth application. So let's see if this goes overboard or if it actually works nicely. Let me know how it's translating on camera, but this is actually coming out really nicely on the skin. So next is the JH09, which is the Glow Baby Glow brush. I'm not going to take a lot of time talking about this today because she did say it is basically identical to the M501, which is a brush that I use to highlight very frequently. And yeah, it's working beautifully, but it is basically that exact same brush. So I've used this about 1,000,000 times. You all have seen me use this about 1,000,000 times. It does not disappoint. And for the collection, I think it's great to have it in the white as well. But if you are looking to pick these brushes up in singles and just get the ones you need, then I'm gonna say this and the M401, identical. So we are getting down to the wire. These are the only brushes left. First thing I'm gonna say is the JH10, which this is a Snatch Your Edges brush, which she likes to use to kind of like stamp powder here to clean up the under eyes. If you want to take this to put powder down the center of the nose for contour or to really tighten things up down here, you can. I don't like brushes like this. I do have one and I have used it twice and I'm not a fan. So that I'm gonna just say right now, not for me, and not even going to say anything else on it. And we're on to eyeshadow. So I'm gonna be using the original Jaclyn Hill palette for today's look. I did do mini reviews, a standalone video, and I'll link the playlist up here of all 4 of her new palettes, but I feel like so many people have this, and there are a lot of looks on here with it, but I haven't done all that many, so I'm gonna be using it today. So the first brush is the JH30, which reminds me of the M510, M501, the M504, this one right here. They remind me, they're very similar. These bristles are a little softer and a little bit firmer. So I feel like this is really just gonna help buff things a little better. I'm gonna start by going into a matte shade just to set down a transition. Next is the JH32, which she uses as the transition blender brush. So I already did a blown out transition, but I am gonna take a little bit on the tip of this brush, and I'm just going to go right into the socket and tone the transition area. So using a brush like this, you'll still have that light wash of color that we did before right up here, but in the crease what it's gonna do is it's gonna keep really tight and precise so that you add a little bit of warmth, but it helps the shadows to do the blending for you. So rather than having to go back and forth with a larger brush and add more of that first color, you can really just define everything together. Next, using the JH31 with a touch of a little more of that transition color. This she uses as the fluffy blender brush, and I'm gonna take this and just kind of buff over those areas because this is gonna be a pretty dark and smoky look. So I do wanna make sure that the edges are really, really well blended. When I go in with dark shadows, I like to really blend the light colors and work my way to the dark. I'm gonna end up doing a full video, or let me know down below if you wanna see a full video on how I achieve a super dark smoky eye, how to use black shadow, and the works, because one of the biggest tips is like gradiate your color down. Now these are the brushes I have left. Obviously, I'm probably not gonna get to use all of them today, but I am certainly going to try. Next is the Carve Your Crease brush. This is the JH34. And I'm gonna take that with a little bit of a brick shade. And I'm gonna take that, and instead of going into the crease like I did before, I'm gonna go under the crease, and in soft circular motions, start adding this to the outline of the lid. Now when going for a super smoky look, I do like to do stuff like this because what it does for me is it helps to set down where I'm gonna take those darker colors later, and it really makes blending them after so much more seamless. Now this brush is also a little scratchy, just like the other pointy crease brush. Not like deal breaker scratchy, but if you really don't like scratchy brushes, you may not like this. I'm gonna dip back into the fluffy blender brush and just buff out those edges one last time. Now that we have our warm crease, we're ready to go in with our really dark colors. So I'm gonna start with the JH40, which is the precise blender brush. And I'm gonna dip into a very small amount of black shadow. And I'm just going to trace the crease. This is something I really like doing when I go in with a super dark smoky eye, just because it does, again, set down where the black is gonna go. And it helps later when blending so things don't get muddy. So this was also very soft, very pointy, very precise. I feel like you could use this for an inner corner highlight or a brow bone highlight if you don't like a super stiff brush for that. So this is the JH37, and this is the Buffer Blender brush. So what I'm gonna do is, with no additional product, I'm just gonna kind of lay that above the crease and just buff, because I want that black to be diffused. But I really want to make sure that you're seeing that warmth come through. We don't want this to look like black and gray. We definitely want a little bit of that terracotta burnt brick shade to come through. And we spend so much time putting those colors down that we want to make sure it is really seamless. Next up is the JH35, which is the upper crease shade. Now this is supposed to go right here just to help you clean up those edges. And that's what I'm going to do by taking a little bit of that terracotta shade from before, and I'm gonna take it just above that black, just because that warmth is getting a little bit lost and we do wanna make sure to bring it back. And I didn't have to go in with all of these. The only reason I am is I really wanna like test out all of the brushes and give you guys a full understanding of all of the brushes in the kit, rather than, you know, using like 8 brushes and saying, yeah, 8 out of 24, totally go buy this. Now going into the JH33, which is a lot like the MAC 217, the Morphe M433, the Morphe R37. It is that same fluffy, flat definer brush. I'm gonna pick up just a little bit of black shadow, and I'm gonna start pressing it into the outer V of the eye, and in circular motions, blending it just up to where we already set down the black. So this actually reminds me so much of the M433 and all those brushes. However, the bristles feel a little bit longer. So on those other brushes, I feel like I don't have enough room to kind of hit the whole eye. I kind of buff up here, and then there's a bald spot down here. This one, not an issue at all. When I go like this, lid all the way down to the lash line, I feel like I have no issue getting this color really nicely and tight in there. Next up is the JH41, and this is the all-over lid brush. So I'm gonna load that up with a semi-cool tone shimmer shade. I am gonna spray the brush just because I always do, and I'm going to apply this to the lid. Okay, this picked up the pigment really nicely. I'm not seeing any fallout under the eye. It deposited nicely. And I know I sprayed the shade, but honestly, like, that's not always the case. There are definitely times where I spray a brush and it still gets all over the place. All right, I'm gonna go back into that other brush and just touch up the black and blend it into that crease and into the lid shade. All right, so I'm just going to throw some mascara on my top lashes. I may put on falsies, I don't know. And then I'm gonna throw a black liner in the waterline and I'll be right back. Okay, so I did not end up going in with falsies. I just did mascara because I'm really liking how the shadow is showing through. And I already set down some black eyeliner in the lower waterline. And I'm gonna start with a super small definer brush with a little bit of black shadow. And I'm just going to first set down that shadow and liner. And on the outer portion of the eye, I'm actually going to drag it down just a little bit. This flat brush is such a staple. I discovered a brush similar in the original Jaclyn Hill Vault brush kit, and honestly, I never looked back. It is perfect for just depositing color in the waterline. So next up, dipping into the JH38, which is the perfect pencil brush. And I'm gonna take a little bit of that brick shade, and I'm just going to run that on the outer portion of the waterline, connecting it to this kind of outer V. Then on that same brush, I'm gonna take a little bit of the terracotta shade, which is a little bit lighter, and I'm gonna start in the middle of the eye and pull that to the inner corner. Then I'm just gonna wipe off that brush, take a little bit of the transition shade, and just kind of buff under everything. Next up, we have the M439, I'm sorry, the JH39, and this is the inner corner highlight brush. So I'm gonna take just that, an inner corner highlight. So this is perfect. Such an issue I have with inner corner brushes is either they don't pick up enough product so you don't get this like intense, or they're not long enough so you can't like buff it towards the lid and you get this really harsh contrast where the lid meets the inner corner. Lastly, this is the JH42 and this is the brow bone highlight brush, and I'm gonna take that same shade and I'm just going to run that in this entire area. So that's really pretty. But I typically would use a brush like this for the inner corner, or to pack like precise lid shade when I want to do either shimmer over top a wing or something with graphic liner. I'll use that to be really precise, but I do think it did a good job. All right, I'm just gonna go and quickly throw on a lip, set my face, gather my thoughts, and I'll be right back. So final thoughts, the JH08 was the only brush that I'm not in love with. All of these performed really well. They all worked out really well. I take that back. The JH10, I didn't even try. Because honestly, like, what was I gonna clean up? Like, I don't blow out my shadow like that. I don't really use brushes like that. But other than that, I tried out 23 of the 24 brushes, and this was the only negative. And my only negative with it is that it pulled up the concealer. I feel like if I was to take this with cream contour or cream bronzer down here, it might work a little better. I have had issues in the past with stuff like concealer sticking to my nose anyway, so it might have just been where I was using it, so the jury is still out on this one. I will have to try it again. That being said, all of the other ones are fantastic. I think that for me, the ones that stood out the most as things that you need in your collection, the powder brush, this was just so soft and so beautiful, and with a brush this size, setting the face in 30 seconds is so easy. The JH06, which was the soft powder brush, just for brushing away powder or taking a light amount of powder and just setting the face very gently. The face doesn't look overly powdered. It doesn't look like, honestly, I'm really happy with how it all turned out. And the two other brushes that were perfect for me that I think stand out far above the rest are the JH33, which is just a flat shader brush, but it was perfect for packing shadow on here, but it's big enough that it will hit your lash line. You're not gonna have to like go up here and then drag it down. It takes half of the work out of it for you. And the other one was the JH41, which was the brush I took for all of the shadow all over the lid. It just held the right amount of product. It is dense enough that it picked up powder, but not so dense that it sucked it all up. It was really easy to just kind of deposit this shimmer shade down and have everything look really seamless. So if you're only looking to get a few, these are the 4 that I think were above and beyond all of the rest. However, for the value, getting this whole kit with this beautiful, easy magnetic travel box that does fit everything is wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Bye.